There you go.
Fantastic. So we'll put a little feminist lens hat on, if you all will. And I will see if I can appropriately share my screen. Here we go.
Oh, you're good.
Almost there, friends. It's just tiny. And
No.
then it doesn't like me to move it. Hold on. Let me make it like appropriate sized. It's just, there we go. All right. A little bit of Vashti if we can. You guys are always welcome to interrupt and interject a thought at any time. So, do I have a volunteer to read from the book of Esther, chapter 1, starting at verse 9?
I'll
I
be
can do
happy. Oh, go ahead, Rose.
do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. In addition, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for women in the royal palace of King, I don't know how to pronounce it,
Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the king was merry with wine, he ordered Mehuman, Bizetha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Behar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs in attendance on the king Ashur, whatever,
Him.
to bring Queen Vashti before the king wearing a royal diadem, to display her beauty to the peoples and the officials, for she was a beautiful woman. But
Will
Queen
you
Vashti,
pause for 1 second?
okay, sure.
Because there was so much in those few verses. All right, so what's happening? Who's having a party?
Well, the
Is
king
having a party.
Who is?
King is having a party.
with
The
all his
king
buddies. Yeah.
and Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace. So there's 2 parties happening.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah. And what day did they want to mention of the party are they on?
Seventh day.
Seventh day.
Yeah. Jews like the number
Ah.
7, but these aren't Jews. So that also matters. And he is merry with
Wine.
and he's called upon his queen to come before and display her beauty, and she is certainly a beautiful woman, it says. But in verse 12, Rosa, will you pick it up?
Okay, but Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, conveyed by the eunuchs. The king was greatly incensed, and his fury burned within him. Then the king consulted the sages learned in procedure, for it was a royal practice to turn to all who were versed in law and precedent. His closest advisors were Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Maris, Marsans, and Memucan, the 7 ministers of Persia and Media, who had access to the royal presence and occupied the first place in the kingdom. What, he asked, shall be done according to law to Queen Vashti for failing to obey the command of King A, I can't bother to pronounce that, conveyed by the eunuchs? Thereupon Memucan declared in the presence of the king and the ministers, Queen Vashti has committed an offense, not only against your majesty, but also against all the officials and against all the people in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, whatever that is. For the queen's behavior will make all wives despise their husbands, as they reflect that King A, himself ordered Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day later. Okay.
Pause. Okay. So he called for her to come and show her beauty, and she refused, which made him angry. So angry, in fact, that he consorted with his advisors to find out what her punishment should be. What should be done with her? And this is like one of my favorite lines, if you will. It's pretty horrible. I mean, all these other women are going to hear what she did, and their husbands are going to be like,
wow.
Yeah, influence. This is not good. There'll be no end of scorn and provocation. No end to this once the people hear about it. All these women are going to get out of line, is how I read that line. They're all going to be acting not appropriately. So on verse 19, it says, if it please your majesty, you can keep going, Rosa.
Oh, where am I? Oh,
Right.
if it please your majesty, let a royal edict be issued by you, and let it be written into the laws of Persia and Media, so that it cannot be abrogated, that Vashti shall never enter the presence of King Ashuru, or whatever, and let your majesty bestow her royal state upon another who is more worthy than she. Then will the judgment executed by your majesty resound throughout your realm, vast though it is, and all the wives will treat their husbands with respect, high and low alike. The proposal was approved by the king and the ministers, and the king did as Memucan proposed.
Vashti.
But we know why she refused.
You do?
Well, some other resource, yeah, we do. Didn't he expect her to come in naked, just with a crown?
Well, most likely, yes. Yeah, that's kind of what was happening. It's 7 days of drinking and orgying and all that good fun. So most likely he did want her to be naked. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily why she refused or not. That's one theory.
She may not want to be bossed around.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah. What do we think happened to her?
Well, wasn't she the daughter of another king? So she lived in a palace before. So maybe she had her way there. Maybe it's what Janice said.
I mean,
She had,
she definitely disappears.
yes.
We don't know if she's executed, if she just disappears. And we know that this is what is supposed to, her disappearance should teach a lesson to everyone, right? So Rashi, I always love me some Rashi. We're gonna read not a lot of Rashi, we're gonna read a lot of Midrash and modern commentary, but nonetheless, let's see why Rashi says she refused. Dennis, you want to read this one? It's fun.
Sure. Her rabbis said because leprosy broke out on her. Vivid. Vashti did not refuse out of modesty. She was as lewd as her husband and would have attended had she not broken out with leprosy. Another opinion is that the angel Gabriel caused her to grow a tail so that she should refuse and be executed. Wow. Because she would force Jewish girls to disrobe and make them do work on Shabbos, it was decreed upon her to be stripped naked on Shabbos. This punishment was in the form of midah, something midah, just as she had done, so it was decreed upon her. Wow.
Because she had done to them, it would be done to her.
So I think that amounts to do unto others as you would have them do.
Right. So here are our ancestors are doing some interpretation. Rashi says, she had leprosy, so it would have been unsightly. We know that she was not a good Jewish girl because she was partying on Shabbos 7 days, and that's her behavior is lewd and disgusting. And so it's fine. She was not a good girl, and it wasn't about her modesty at all. It was simply because she had leprosy. Yeah. And others are basically saying, well, during her party, she was also throwing this festivities. And so do unto you as you would have, have others do unto you, back and forth. So she was punished in this way. Not good either way.
Excuse me, it just seems a little strange that both interpretations would fall in similar fashion, that the king's ministers would say, Vashti will, her refusal cause everybody else to rebel, and here we have the rabbi saying
Yep.
that she would also have a bad influence on Jewish girls.
So is she a Jew?
No.
Is she going to save the Jewish people?
No, not at all.
Are they going to make her a heroine of our story?
No, they're not.
And in a feminist lens, the quick interpretation is to be like, yeah, Vashti, bring it on. So there is always going to be the other side, but she can't, her act of defiance is not going to be the defiance that is lifted up. It's going to be the act of Mordecai and the act of Esther, who goes before the king, not called, right? for whatever that's worth. And then in the JTS Bible commentary, it says Vashti refused to appear, and now she may never appear again.
Sounds like the
Right.
mafia.
Because she just disappears. Well, the book is silent about what actually happens, becomes of Vashti. Many Midrashim then interpret her punishment as she was executed. Okay. All right, let's read a little Megillah, little Talmud on this topic. Phyllis, did you want to read?
Sure.
Okay.
Also, Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King whatever.
I know. I can't pronounce it.
Jeremiah questions why she held the feast in the royal house, a place of men rather than in the women's house where it should have been. Rava said in response, the two of them had sinful intentions. Wished to fornicate with the women, and Vashti wished to fornicate with the men. This explains the folk saying that people say he with his wife.
All right. So what we have here is a case of these are not Jewish people and they're not acting great. Right? They're all about sex and hedonism, and it's basically a big old orgy. And we don't talk about this when we are sharing the story with the children, the story of Purim. In fact, I literally just tried to have this discussion with my 13-year-old that there's more to the story. And she was like, what are you talking about? She's almost 14. And she's like, there's like people killed in it. And I was like, yes, there are people killed in this story. Have you read the actual book of Esther? She's like, So the retelling, we don't really emphasize this. Sometimes in spiels with adults, we'll kind of hint at it. But here's what's going on. You've got a woman throwing her own party. You've got the king throwing his party, and our sages are definitely going to bury this woman. It's not like she had an innocent gathering of women. And one of the reasons they come against her is because it says she was in his royal house. She wasn't in her house having a party. There's a really cute book called Vashti and the Comfy Pants. It's a brand new children's book. And it's more about like her wanting to sit around in her comfy pants with her friends, like almost like a PJ party. And then she goes and travels the world. It's fantastic. It's great little kids book. And it's a positive version of Vashti, which I tend to lean towards. It's not what our sages are going to do.
Right.
But here you go. So she wanted to sleep with his guys, and his guys wanted to sleep with her girls. And that is not uncommon in the time period. Also proving further that these are clearly not good Jewish people. All right, we're read a little more Megillah. Janice, do you want to read?
No, I'm having trouble seeing it.
Oh, sometimes it's very hard to see it on the screen. Gary, how about you guys?
Sure. The verse states, on the 7th day when the heart of the king was merry with wine, the Gemara asks, is that to say that until now his heart was not merry with wine? Did it take 7 days for him to achieve merriment? Takes me 1 or 2 cups.
Right?
Rabbi said the 7th day was Shabbat, when the difference between the Jewish people and the Gentiles is most apparent. On Shabbat, when the Jewish people eat and drink, they begin by occupying themselves with words of Torah and words of praise for God. But the nations of the world, when they eat and drink, they begin only with the words of licentiousness. Gemara continues.
Of course.
Sorry?
I said, of course. You knew that.
Yes. Well.
Keep going.
Okay. The Gemara continues to detail what occurred at the feast. So too at the feast of that wicked man, Ahasuerus, when the men began to converse, some said, the Median women are the most beautiful, while others said, the Persian women are the most beautiful. Ahasuerus said to them, the vessel that I use, i.e. my wife, is neither Median nor Persian, but rather Chaldean. You wish to see her? They said to him, yes, provided that she be naked, for we wish to see her without any additional adornments. Hello?
Mine is prettier than yours. No, my people are prettier than your people. Well, my vessel, my property is the fairest of them all. Okay, prove it. Hence the commentary earlier that she was called for to be naked. Right?
Yeah.
No adornments.
Except for the diadem.
Right? It's not a, it's pretty gross.
Yes, that's
Okay. It's just gross. So here's a little midrash on our refusing. Susan, can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Go for it.
But Queen Vashti refused. She sent and said to him words that touched his heart. She said to him, "If they see that I am fair, they will try to make use of me and kill you. But if they see that I am ugly, you will be denigrated through me." She was speaking subtly to him, but he did not understand her subtlety. She was pricking him, but he was not pricked. She was speaking subtly to him, but he did not understand her subtlety. She was pricking him, but he was
All right.
not pricked. She sent and said to him, "The Ecticus, oh, I don't know what that is, one found guilty in court of my father's house, were not judged naked."
Okay, so in this midrash, she's like, it's almost, you know what it almost is like? It's like when Moses says to God, "Hey, do you really want to punish those people that you saved, that you took out of Egypt? Like, what's that going to say about you?" You know, maybe they built a calf, but like, shouldn't punish them so much because shouldn't you be in control? So she's like, if you show them how beautiful I am, they're going to want to rape me. And to do that, they're going to have to get rid of you. So you're going to be murdered. And if I'm ugly, you're going to be the laughing stock. So there's no win-win here. Don't make me come to you. But remember, it's his 7th day of being drunk, and he's now finally merry. So because he's so merry on the 7th day, he can't hear her. He can't, or men don't pick up subtleties. He can't hear her because he's drunk. And
He
he's
doesn't care
super,
what she
super merry.
says.
So, and again, this doesn't actually happen in the book of Esther. This is a midrash. She didn't just refuse, she actually sent word to him. This is a bad idea. If you make me appear naked, nothing good is going to come of it. And I'm going to, like she's a married woman to the king. There is no sleep with the queen and not get punished. So either all the people who are partying with him are going to die, or they're going to have to kill him to do what they want to do. And they're all drunk.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of holding back in those instances. So in this case, Vashti's being painted not as she's actually being painted with wisdom and thoughtfulness, and not like, oh, she was a leper. Oh, she had a tail. But it's just a midrash. Sorry. Hit a curb and blew her tire.
Oh.
So we're playing a little game while she and figures it all out. So we're having fun. It's a learning lesson for everyone today.
Right.
It is. And it was so nice to have AAA. Alrighty. My father would have maybe changed my tire because I am from Missouri. Let's be very clear. Let's be very clear. Okay. Very short little blurb. Phyllis, you want to read again?
No. Sure.
Okay.
No, I'll read. Esther, your story begins not with you, but another woman, Vashti. Vashti is also beautiful first wife of King,
Ahasuerus.
yeah, who upon refusing to make herself available for the king to show off to her guests, is functionally excommunicated. Vashti's refusal is a puzzling one. As queen, she likely knew that the consequences of disobeying and water from her king would be one of life or death. She refuses anyway, as if choosing death is better than being a beautiful object to be gazed upon. But never mind this. This is a story, not hers. In your story, is it her absence that is important because it creates the opening for your entrance? You can only exist because of pain. Through it is of another woman. Vashti's plan is of justification. Vashti's pain is being thrown out of the palace, but perhaps this could have been mingled with relief. In this way, too, beauty is pain, or more accurately, here begets it.
Esther's story cannot start until Vashti's story comes to an end, right? Because there is no space for a new queen until Vashti is removed from her role. And Vashti is a source of objectification. And it's really interesting, like, is it such a bad thing to be thrown out of the palace? It's a bad thing if she was killed.
Yeah.
But if she's excommunicated, her whole life would change and flip on its head and probably be horrible since it was a man's world and all that business. But I don't know what's harder, to be an object or to have that independence. But the point of Nina Coombs here is that Esther wouldn't exist, or heroine's role would not exist had Vashti not walked this path first. And so we have different versions of feminism when we look at Vashti and Esther's stories. One is a refusal to use her beauty and at the king's behest for the pleasure of his guests. And the other is one who, because of her beauty, ends up in the role of queen and is a little bit used in the beginning. She's taken in by her uncle / cousin. She's taken by the king, a lot of lakach. Taken is the verb utilized in her narrative. And then she is quite wise, actually, and knows how to get to the king's heart. And Esther will throw him a party. We'll wait a little day, more than one day of the party, not 7, because that would be breaking Shabbat. She fasts beforehand, she plans, she schemes, she throws a multiple day party, and then she figures out how to have it be the king's idea to save the Jewish people, so to speak. So she ends up using her cunning, wisdom, and intelligence, but it is her beauty that gets her foot in the door. Let's see what Josephine Scheiser has to say about this. Another short blurb, if you will. Dennis, you want to read?
Sure. Vashti is defined by her single independent action of refusing to come before the king. I see Vashti's refusal to appear before the king as a feminist statement, refusing to participate in something that she didn't believe in. Although Vashti's actions have been viewed in different lights, positive and negative, by various midrashim, this view aligns mostly with midrashim that were composed by rabbis living in Eretz Yisrael. She was uncomfortable complying with the king's wishes, and according to this midrashic school of thought, she thought they were inappropriate. Vashti is one type of feminist refusing to be part of something she doesn't believe in.
So it matters, by the way, who wrote down the midrashim and the time period they wrote it down in. Hence that view. All right, here comes our Esther. Beautiful, wonderful Esther. Gary, do you want to read some text?
Sure. When the king's order and edict was proclaimed, and when many girls were assembled in the fortress Shushan under the supervision of Hegai, Esther too was taken into the king's palace under the supervision of Hegai, the guardian of the women. The girl pleased him and won his favor, and he hastened to furnish her with cosmetics and her rations, as well as with 7 maids who were her due from the king's palace. And he treated her and her maids with special kindness in the harem. Esther did not reveal her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had told her not to reveal it. Every single day Mordecai would walk about in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was faring and what was happening to her. When the turn came for Esther, daughter of Abichail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own. Uh-oh, I lost it.
Sorry.
Oh, let's see.
It's way at the top.
Way at the top. Oh, thank you. To go to the king, she did not ask for anything, but what Haggai, the king's eunuch, guardian of the women, advised. Yet Esther won the admiration of all who saw her. Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus in his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. The king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she won his grace and favor more than all the virgins. So he set a royal diadem on her head and made her the queen instead of Vashti. But Esther still did not reveal her kindred or her people as Mordecai had instructed her. Okay.
Sorry, I touched my computer screen and all
Sorry.
changed.
I know.
For Esther obeyed Mordecai's bidding as she had done when she was under his tutelage.
Okay.
There's something very interesting that I've noticed in
Yeah.
reading this out loud. Everything happens in sevens, and this particular uh, activity is happening in the 7th month. It's getting very close to what we call July, but sometime around Passover. I mean, is it connected?
Well, it says the 10th month.
Sorry. Well, it's 7th year of his reign. I'm sorry. The
Yeah,
10th.
yeah. But I'm with you. I'm with you. 7 is a very popular number for
Yeah.
certain. For certain. That's completeness. That's wholeness. So it's going to happen in the 7th year that the Jews will reassure their place. It's a very popular time frame. I think why is my screen moving every different direction? Anybody have any idea? Because I don't.
I don't know.
Let me see. Oh, there we go. Nope, just kidding. Doesn't want to play nicely. It is a very interesting thing. Does Esther want to go to him?
No,
I don't think she wants to go. I think she feels the obligation because of Mordecai. Her uncle told her that this was something she had to do to save our people.
So Esther's like, okay, my uncle's telling me I gotta do this, so I guess I will do what's okay. So she goes to the king, and you see the word lakach, and the king. So the king is gonna take her, just like her uncle adopted her, and he took her. So she's a constantly, like, right now she's still a pawn. She's not quite in her own stead, with her own feet on the ground. And she does not talk about who she comes from or what she's about. It's just she goes and is pleasing before the king. If you have to ask me what an ideal woman was back then, it's one who keeps her mouth shut and does what is pleasing for the person that she serves, because she is chattel, she is property. And Esther is playing that role very well.
So, Rabbi, I have a question. She was
Mhm.
part of the harem. So does that mean that he would call any of those women there and mate with them? I mean, have sex with
No,
them?
they're all virgins because he's calling for a queen. He's got plenty of people that he
So-
can sleep with, but right now this is part of this process of finding the new
Ah.
queen.
So he's
And so
being
once he sleeps with her, she is his wife.
he is respectful with all these women. Okay,
With these women,
with these
there's
women, yeah.
probably something else happening in the kingdom, but with these women, these are intended to be for him. One of them will be his wife, the one who pleases him the most.
And it never says anything about him, how he treated other women, because there were no children in this story.
No,
Yeah.
there are no children. Well, I think Haman's children are mentioned.
Right, but they're not the king's children.
No. All right, the verse continues, Megillah 10b. And instead of the nettle, Sirpad, this means instead of the wicked Vashti. Oh, she's wicked here. Well, she's called a nettle because she was the daughter of the son of the wicked Nebuchadnezzar, who burned the ceiling of the house of God, as is written, its top refidato of gold.
Because
This
she's a,
section, they're
he's-
saying that Vashti is Nebuchadnezzar's child.
And she pricks the king, so she's a nettle, she stings him.
She is a midge. She is a thorn in his side. Shall the myrtle Hadass, Esther, Hadassah, Hebrew name, come up? This is the righteous Esther, who was called Hadassah in the Megillah, as it is stated. And he had brought up Hadassah, that is Esther. The concluding section of the verse states, and it shall be to Adonai for a name. This is the reading of the Megillah. For an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. These are the days of Purim. She was nothing but a thorn or a nettle in the side of the king, and making way for Hadassah, this beautiful smelling Hadassah myrtle, to come forward and be by his side. Now you will not look at the your lulav quite the same.
Ooh.
All right, and then again in Megillah we read, the verse states, and the 7 maids chosen to give out of the king's house, Rava said she would have a separate maid attend her each day, Esther, and she would count the days of the week by them, so she was always aware when Shabbat was. The verse continues, and he advanced her and her maids to the best place in the house of the women. She even knew what it meant, even when her Judaism had to be cast aside since she was living amongst the king and all of the things in his household. But because she had a different woman every day, she never lost track of her Shabbat. And the Shabbat was the undoing of Vashti and the undoing of Ahasuerus. That was the day of the party that things went asunder. To complete the discussion about the prophetess, the Gemara cites a Baraita in which the sages taught there were 4 women of extraordinary beauty in the world: Sarah, Abigail, Rahab, and Esther. And according to the one who said that Esther was greenish in color, lacking natural beauty, only that a cord of divine grace was strung around her. Remove Esther from the list and insert Vashti in her place, for she was indeed beautiful. It's fascinating. The only thing that made Esther pretty was God's presence with her, which clearly it wasn't with Vashti. Vashti happened to be quite beautiful. And then, nope, I already read that Midrash. Taking Back Purim by Tamara Cohen. I thought it was Eskenazi, Tamara Cohen Eskenazi, but that's just me. I need a good reader who wants to read it.
Well, I can read, as long as Ashkenazi isn't in there. I'll manage. We are also challenging ourselves to move beyond the dichotomy of bad queen, and good feminist, bad feminist, and embrace a wider spectrum of possibility for women's leadership. For much of Jewish interpretive tradition, Vashti was the bad queen and Esther the good one. Then in the early days of Jewish feminism, Vashti was resurrected and celebrated for her open defiance of the king and her powerful defense of her body and sexuality. Not surprisingly, as Vashti's popularity grew, Esther fell out of favor. Feminists were not sure they could accept 2 different models of powerful women. For some, Esther suddenly became a negative symbol for all women who use their sexuality, enjoy their beauty, fear confrontation, and remain married to power. These interpretations of Esther minimize her courage in directly confronting both Ahasuerus and Haman, and in coming out as a Jew after years of hiding her identity. They also ignore Esther's powerful role as an innovator of communal ritual action in her calling for a public fast. Continue. We hope to move away from the paradigm of good girl, bad girl, and good feminist, bad feminist to explore through art and our experience of it, the relationship between Esther and Vashti and all that they have come to symbolize. Celebrating Vashti along with Esther also gives us a ritual means to balance the antagonism inspired by Haman with a celebration of how much we have to gain by listening and not simply blotting out. Vashti is not evil like Haman or a fool like Ahasuerus. She is non-Jewish. She is a non-Jewish woman who, because of her own suffering at the hands of the more powerful, has much in common with,
Uh-oh.
quote, oops, what happened?
It's
Okay,
just
where
my
am I?
screen.
Oh, she has much in common with both Mordecai and Esther and can therefore serve on a narrative and symbolic level as a teacher, model, and ally. All right.
So
Yeah.
basically, Tamara's like, don't dump her just because she's blotted out. Don't blot her out like Haman. Like, lift this woman up, lift up her level of defiance and her powerful narrative of saying, I'm not coming before you. All right, keep going.
As feminists committed to honoring Esther's leadership, we cannot ignore the fact that it is Esther who asks the king for an additional day on which the Jews can kill their enemies, the armed force, together with women and children. We must challenge ourselves to find a way to celebrate Esther's power without necessarily endorsing the violence she authorizes. Perhaps this is another reason for our pairing of Esther and Vashti. Once we link the stories of this Jewish and un-Jewish queen, we are on the way to recognizing the linked fates of their peoples. When we unite Esther, who ends up as a powerful queen, with Vashti, who is by the end of the story is absent and therefore powerless, we can begin to grasp the necessity of balancing the need to exercise power with the need to share it. It is time for us to make room in our midst and in our communities for more than one model of leadership. It is time for us to learn from both Esther and Vashti, from both the Jewish women in our texts and the non-Jewish women and men. It is time to celebrate women's power and to question the ways we have wielded it over others, like a duality of both.
Yes, exactly what it
The
is.
strength of each, really. I mean,
And that there can be balance in both,
yeah.
that they both need each other to balance. You know, nobody talks about all the death in the book of Esther. It's got a lot of dead people. People don't really talk about that. And there is a lot of sexuality, and there is the misuse of abuse of women's bodies and the taking advantage of them. And then there's also the way that they seize power. They just do it in different ways. And that together, it's a stronger force of leadership than if we just take one model over the other model. Judy Lutz wrote this poem, Coming Out as Who You Are, right? Because on Purim, we're always hiding ourselves with masks. Throw off your mask, throw off your facade. I am with you to help you have the courage to be who you are. May you be like Esther, not be afraid to reveal who you are. May you be like Vashti and not be afraid to speak out. And may you defeat all of your Hamans. Kind of a nice well wish for folks in this season. And then here is another little interpretation. Susan, do you want to read?
There were 3 women in the book of Esther that,
Oh yeah, there was another one.
Oh,
Keep going.
that we all know. Esther the heroine, Haman's wife, the evil Zeresh, and Vashti, the first queen who refuses Ahasuerus' order to present her beauty in public. But these are not the women I want to write about. Rather, the king has a multitude of other anonymous victims, extras to the main plot. After he does away with Vashti, Ahasuerus needs a new queen, and so his servants collect all the beautiful maidens from the entire empire. The king's only basis for deciding whether a young woman suits him is by sleeping with her, every single one. Once he decides that she is not fit to be queen, she is not released, but now belongs to him forever. He gets to decide if ever he wants to see her, that is, sleep with her again. The premise for Esther's selection is not only the objectification of Vashti, but the sexual abuse and exploitation of every single maiden from India to Ethiopia.
So if in taking all of the virgins, if he didn't just have them pass before him for judgment, but actually tried them all on, they can therefore not marry someone else. And so they stay in his harem. Is that what Rosa said earlier?
Mhm.
If that's what happened. We know that he had tons of women, as most kings did in their courts and palaces. It is understood by many that in all the women going before him, that he literally tried them on.
Yeah,
Kind of gross.
He must be very
And
tired.
that includes Esther?
yeah.
Includes
Esther.
Esther, but she was the favorite, so she becomes a wife and not just one of she becomes the queen, right? And trying her on, she was a virgin until he met her, and then he keeps her as the queen. He puts the crown on her head, which would suggest why she was like not excited, right? Like they sent around looking for them, and Mordecai's like, "You're gonna go do this," and she's like, "Really? You told me to, I will." But she wasn't like, "Let me go run over there and do that." Go for my beauty pageant. The way that it's shown in like most spiels, it's like a beauty pageant. So
Yeah, I think that it's sort of misleading when they refer to all these other women as virgins, because it's pretty common knowledge that if women are in a harem, it's because the king or whoever owns the harem is sleeping with them.
well, so what they're saying is that's how they got conscribed into the harem, right? They were virgins, so because any of them could be pleasing. The people who were already in his harem, he can't marry
Oh,
because they weren't of good standing. So he needed to have all the virgins. And then if he tried them on, then
They weren't
they are,
virgins anymore.
and they are not good for anybody else either. So the American Jewish World Service writes, yeah, what were we going to say?
This is giving me a whole new point on a whole new thought about Mordecai now. That he set his
Right?
up. It's like,
Did he whore out his sister? Or not his sister, his cousin, his daughter by adoption.
you know?
Oh my God.
So we don't, I mean, none of us were there. These are a lot of things that are filling in the blanks by what is known of the time periods. So American Jewish World Service writes, as we read about the rounding up of women for King Ahasuerus to review, we hear echoes of people rounded up into servitude, whether Africans to labor in the New World or Korean comfort women to serve the sexual demands of Japanese soldiers in World War II. Women today, especially in the global South, are often exploited due to unequal power relations, lack of access to resources, and pervasive sexism. The story of Esther gives us the opportunity to reflect on the circumstances that propel women into sex work and sexual exploitation in the Megillah and in our time. So yes, we were talking about the power of Vashti, and yes, we were talking about the feminist lens that views Esther in a really positive light as well. But if we're also considering adding depth to our study of Purim this year, we might want to consider the role of the exploitation of women.
Okay.
George W. Bush, United States opposes prostitution and any related activities. This is from 2002, including pimping, pandering, and or maintaining brothels as contributing to the phenomenon of trafficking in persons. These activities are inherently harmful and dehumanizing. The United States government's position is that these activities should not be regulated as a legitimate form of work for any human being. So there is no way to legitimize it that will allow, because women will not be in charge. It will always be a man in charge in this view set, and or powerless or powerful women in charge of those who are less powerful. Mordecai, the eunuchs, the king's servants, the king's men who said, well, Vashti didn't listen to you, so we're going to put an edict out for everybody to know that women answer and are less powerful than men. And so this is part of like, how do we get into that unequal, that balance of power that allows for women to be subjugated. And then Samantha Power, the enforcer from the New Yorker, in the view of professional sex workers and some human rights organizations, it is not prostitute itself that harms women, but rather the refusal to treat prostitutes as legitimate workers. Oh, kind of stands in the face of what we just read, leading police to repress, extort, and assault them, and making it difficult for them to obtain health services. Sex workers in countries such as India and Thailand have begun to organize, gaining access to condoms, health services, literacy, and vocational programs and loans. In some cases, sex worker unions had barred police from brothels. So,
Wonderful.
where is the power? Is the power in preventing it from happening, or is the power in actually regulating the behavior and allowing sort of the unions and the things to exist so that there are equal accesses rather than have it be a crime so that it's shunned and looked down upon and women are not given the rights access to medicine and to sex to prevent condoms.
I think there's some power in the women who have managed to create the fact that other people have to respect something for her. If the women were powerful enough for others to be respecting that, giving them whatever social things they need, then the women would be powerless. But if they put themselves together and created a situation where they're powerful.
I mean, Vashti probably knew what was coming her way, and she just said, no, thanks.
Absolutely. Vashti said no. She had enough power to say no because she knew what the consequences were going to be, and she had enough power to recognize that and go with it anyway.
Yeah. And not a lot of people would choose either excommunication or death over servitude in that way. It's a hard thing. Stacey Vizik Robinson wrote, she wrote a bit of a poem on this topic on Esther and Vashti. That blush on my cheek, it's paint. And I have glittered my eyes and robed myself in the finery of silk and gossamer, lapis and gold, and poured myself for your salvation. You asked for no thoughts. You merely offered my body to the king. My life forfeit if my beauty failed. You asked for no ideas, and I gave you none, though I had 1,000 and 10,000 more. Diplomacy was played on the field of my body, the battle won in the curve of my hip and the satin of my skin. Fevered dreams of lust and redemption, that blush on my cheeks, it is the stain of my victory and my shame. That's for Mordecai. Quite something. We don't have to read that. This other perspective, you know, I think I talked a little bit about it with the whole idea of Lakach, and she's taken, and then Esther rising up. It's kind of a beautiful thing. I wanted to share with you guys. I don't know. Did you all see this little video before?
No.
It's a fun video. It's sort of on topic. It might be stretching it, but it's one of those things. And we talk about oh, Zoom quit. Of course it did.
It's slow.
All right. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, it's fine.
My Zoom is
Yeah, mine is slow all the time too.
share, so I can restart. But it won't let me quit the share. Well, am I back?
Yes.
You're back.
Sorry, I'm just trying to share this video with you, and when I tried to share it, it wouldn't let me do it because it's a video. So let me look it up in YouTube and see if it'll let me do it that way. There it is. All right, hold tight. Now I have to find you again. You've lost on my screen. Oh, puppy. All right, here we go. We'll see if it may show an ad, and I may not have a choice about that. And for that, I apologize because I had prepped it, but it doesn't want to be prepped. It's going to work. I know it is.
You are the first woman preacher I've ever met. Are they all as good looking as you?
Are they all as good looking as you? As good looking. That must be the criteria.
Are they all as good looking as you? Oh, man.
Come here, Pastor. I just need a little kiss for comfort.
I just need a little kiss for comfort. Whoa.
Ugh. I just need a little kiss for comfort. Wow.
I have never met a female pastor before. What do I call you? Pastorette?
What do I call you? Pastorette? These are serious?
Yes, they're all real.
That outfit looks really nice. We must be paying you too much.
We must be paying you too much. Why would this ever come out of anyone's mouth? I know.
You're like a little girl playing pastor up there.
You're like a little girl playing pastor up there.
How's that at all appropriate?
You don't look like a senior pastor.
What's that supposed to look like?
You are perfect for us, except for the problem that you are a woman.
You were perfect for us, except for the problem that you are a woman.
I've heard that before, but the other way around, when somebody said, "We're so glad that you're a man." And I said, "Me too, but I don't know what that means." But I did know what it meant. We really like you and think you're a great pastor, but you can't be the senior pastor because you're female.
And that's why not?
We called you because we knew we could afford you. Women pastors are cheaper.
This is awkward. I don't know what kind of reaction I need to be giving or whatever, but I do know, but I don't know. This is terrible.
You shouldn't negotiate your salary and ask for more money. You should just be grateful you are getting a call at all as a female. You should just be grateful you're getting a call at all as a female.
So when are you going to have a baby?
So, when are you going to have a baby?
What are you going to do Sunday morning if your child gets sick?
My goodness.
Yeah. What are you going to do Sunday morning if your child gets sick?
Cat.
Take care of your kid. Sorry. It's just what it is. Sorry.
Take care of the child.
Hey, you're looking good.
Hey, you are looking, that is, no. You are looking good. Yeah.
Yuck.
Your belly is finally sticking out farther than your boobs do.
Your belly is finally sticking out farther than your boobs do. Seriously?
I heard you said you could be bishop one day. Don't you think that's going a little too far?
Sue Briner. No, it's not.
I'm sorry, guys. Like, that is bull. That really sucks.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
Golly. I mean, it's like I got through, 10? And I was like, are we done yet? I mean, it felt like I had done 20 after 10. Each one was...
We have just over 100 women on the roster.
Of our 20 largest congregations, only one is led by a woman.
Of the top 50 earners on the roster, 6 are women.
Of the bottom 100 earners on the roster, 75 are women.
I won't ever be able intimately to understand the uphill struggle of my sisters and colleagues in pastoral ministry. I so admire and respect their courage and faith and tenacity to keep saying yes to God's call in pastoral ministry. And so it becomes my personal conviction to do my part, to honor and support, empower, and make way for women.
Women in power.
Oh, God.
So the story of the book of Esther has everything flipped upside down. Yes, King Ahasuerus has power. Yes, Haman has power. Yes, Mordecai has power. But the redeeming actors in our story are really Vashti and Esther. And so sometimes the story doesn't have to be completely hafuf, upside down or backwards, but maybe just like we found there was a really good duality when you put Vashti and Esther together for their leadership. Maybe we just need duality to put men and women in good places of power side by side, and that we look to these women as our role models. And, you know, will we always need a Women's International Day? I don't know. A Women's Day. You know, is it bad to be recognized? No. But should it really just be about seeing individuals as equal? Yes. You know, like who's going to watch the baby if the baby's sick on Sunday morning? Well, who watched the baby if the baby was sick for Rabbi Jim? You know, there was partnerships. So for me, it wasn't Sunday mornings. For me, it's been, you know, Friday nights and Saturdays. And it's amazing what you can do. Who's going to go change the tire while I have to teach a class? It ain't my husband. Right? Like we're gonna work it all out, folks. But I think we're better in I think we're best when we look to each other and find in each other the good qualities of leadership and look at them for places of power and caution ourselves for those narratives. It's okay to look at the book of Esther and recognize that women's bodies were abused. They were abused, and that isn't okay. And we shouldn't win redemption on the abuse of a woman's body, but let us lift up the good parts where they use their sechel to stand up, and they use their sechel to figure out how to save the Jewish people and save themselves. So that's, I guess, my narrative for the day. And I think that's all we've got in terms of study. But maybe when you hear the Megillah this year, you'll laugh and you'll giggle, but you'll also go like, oh yeah, and then there's that one message, and maybe you'll lift up some new part of the narrative when you talk to your friends. I hope.
Thank you. A fascinating perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
What's the next my neighbor thing?
Okay.
What's the next thing, folks?
Oh, what's the next thing?
The next thing?
I think Rabbi Schuldenfrei is coming next time, isn't it?
All right.
And then
I think so.
the rotation changes every month. I
It
think
does. We're not very good like that. Sorry. But I think he's next. But there's always a ton of great high neighbor programs coming up. I know.
Rabbi Yarkin will be coming back at some point. I will be calling her to see if she'd like to get back into the rotation.
Is she coming back?
Yeah.
She's coming back in April, because I know she's coming back to MID. So.
Oh, great.
We love her, and we miss her so far.
I didn't know. Oh, I'm so thrilled.
So
that's good news. Very good. And you guys there's a new person you're interviewing here. So, or was that last weekend?
That was last week.
This past weekend.
Rabbi
No.
Goldstein.
Too much for me to keep in my brain, but hopefully that went really well. All right, my friends, I'm going to go buy a tire.
All right. Good luck.
Take care. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.